Today we're going to talk about text merges and runtime selection. Very common approach. I typically use text merges in a bunch of different ways. It's a very uncommon designer that you use in decisions. I mean, typically when we think of designers, we think of like the flow designer, the form designer, the page designer, the rule designer. Then what's often left out is the text merge designer. So going into one of these, so I'm just going to create one. I'm just going to call it random text merge. And I'm just going to create it. Text merges are fantastic. What we typically use, when we think of text merge, we think of an input type. We think of, we look at the input mapping and we see the constant, we see select from flow, and we see text merge and text merge HTML. So we see those all the time, but like it kind of, it can be kind of stressful putting those onto a step, because sometimes they can be so deep into your flow that you won't really know where you put them, or you have to go too many levels down to have to affect it and to have to make a change. And so what I'll use text merges for is to bring it to the surface. I once had a client that would, I had a text merge on an end form that was displaying a message to the user telling them that they submitted the application. And they bounced around with the verbiage of that text merge probably up to 30 times. And every time I would have to go into that flow, go into a subflow. And you know me, I'm big on subflow. So I went 4 levels deep just to look at this end form and make a change every time. Instead, what I did was I gave all the inputs that I could potentially have on this text merge, and then was like, hey, if you want to affect this end form and how it looks, here it is. Here's your text merge. You can, type anything in you want. You can don't add input data, because then we'll have to go to the flow. But anything other than that, feel free to make it. Feel free to say the verbiage however you want. It just brings stuff to the surface, so it's less digging you have to do to actually make a change, which makes your product and makes your flow better, right? It's easy to change, it's quick to change, and you'll see those changes instantly. So text merge works like this. So I can just put, this is my text merge. A couple different things here. We can use it. We can preview it as rich text. We can preview it as rich and plain text. We can preview it as plain text. However you kind of want to do it, you can show it here. So by default, you get all these icons. They just come with the text merge. You don't really have to do anything about it. You get calculated fields and stuff like that. But we can also add input data for whatever kind of new or whatever data is in the flow. You can put it right into your text merge. So for this example, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a flow structure for my input. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go to create data types, flow structure. My example flow structure. I'm going to just give it string 1, string 2, and I'll give it one more. I'm going to do current account. It's a flow structure, so none of it's saved in the database, and I can just use it however you want. When I think about flow structures, I think about the use cases of them. I think when I want my data to look like something, but I don't actually want it to be stored like something, that's a good use case for a flow structure. I use it to make the data look however I want for a certain reason or for a certain purpose. Flow structures are great for that. So I'm going to save that flow structure. Go back into my inputs. I'm going to smack it around a little bit. Probably because my localhost is very terrible, because I run all of my important tests on there. I'm going to go to not recent, and we'll look in my current folder, and we'll see my example flow structure. Perfect. Need to provide a name. Let me just name it my data. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put current account ID in here. I'm going to put just string 1. I'm going to save and close. What works best for flow structures, if you're using them in this manner, in like a kind of like a text merge manner, or like something where you're going to show strings or put it in data, what I typically do is just use the string. If you know how you want it to look, or you know what you want it to look like, just use strings. That way you don't have like the integer, and you don't have the date formats and stuff like that, or the decimal formats. You can just work with strings and put it however you'd like. So I'm going to make this random text merge. I'm going to complete that. Hopefully it's saved. Yep, there we go. Close and save. Now I'm going to come here and I'm going to pick run text merge. So do this. Oh man, I have all this junk from when I was trying to make my system work better, more efficient for me. But now it just gets annoying whenever I go to do something. So I'm going to use this run text merge, and it allows you to pick it just like kind of like the form designer or the subflow. And I'm just going to pick my random text merge. You can have it output HTML, or you can have it output plain. You can make it output a PDF if you want, maybe like a doc, which is the best part about it. It's like, let's say you're using the HTML to PDF step. It's a very typical approach for us to just use a merge HTML step, or a end velocity step, or a place tokens in text step, for us to have the whole framework of our HTML and then have inputs of dynamic data. That works really well. And so then once you do that, once you've created your HTML using a text merge kind of format, push it into a HTML to PDF step, and you'll get the document out. But the best part about this kind of text merge step is you can skip the 2 steps and just do it as one. Have it output from your merge HTML directly into a PDF. So that just works really well for you, for your needs. But for mine, I'm just going to put plain for now. I'm going to set this to constant. For my account, I'm just going to pick my admin account, and then my string one, I'm going to put pancake, and then salsa. Don't really go well together, but in this example they can work. And so I only put string one and then account ID in here. So if I were to go to debug this, out would come, this is my text merge administrative account pancake, which is exactly what I have in my random text merge. But since I used it as plain, I don't know what that is.
So where exactly was that text merge option when you created it? Was it like in the data structures, or?
Oh no, yeah, it's actually in the other, which is kind of weird spot for it. It's kind of like the ugly stepsister of designers. Yeah, you got to go to other, create text, the text merge create text, and it shows up there. Yeah. And so yeah, we'll see. I output it as plain text, so of course it's going to mash them all together. But yep. So now a great use case for the merge text, or the text merges, is for bodies and subjects of emails. I can't tell you how many times that I will create a subject and a body for an email in a flow, and we'll go through iterations upon iterations of redoing it and rethinking what that email should sound like, what the verbiage should be, which is natural because we want to have the best product you have and got to make adjustments to it. But the best part about this is if I can make my body and subject text merges, then I don't have to go into a flow, click onto a send email step, and then edit the merge plain text. I can pull that right to the surface, edit it from the top, and then work my way down. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create 2 more text merges. Create text. I'm going to do, this is my body text merge 1. I'm going to give it my data again. Close and save. I'm going to go ahead and go to other, create text merge again. subject text merge one. Go ahead and hit create. And I'm also going to give it my data. Perfect. So now I have a body and a subject and a text merge that I can go to my flow and do. So I'm going to just pick another one over here. Pick my body text merge, and pick, nope, not edit, and pick my subject text merge. Now, of course, with email steps, the subject is going to be plain, and then the body can be HTML, which is great. And both of these are taken in the same my data, which works well with my runtime selection example that I'm going to do a little bit later. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to build data on here. I'm going to select constant, the account. I'm going to pick my admin account. Perfect. I don't even know, eggs. I'm just looking like a breakfast kind of thing going on. So we'll derange from that and I'll do taco. And so this one right here already has the information, which is great. And body, this is my email body. My data, salsa one probably. Close and save. And then my subject. Up. That seems to be going haywire on my localhost. Subject. This is my subject. My data string 2. Close and save. Now, from going back to this flow, this could have a send email step right behind it. You know, I can pull this in, I can pull all the my data in, you know, merge the body, merge the subject, and then spit it right into a send email step where I can send it out. And it can work really well. So I'm going to go ahead and debug this, and you can see my body coming out. This is my email body, which is written in HTML, so it's encased a little bit. See, you got eggs in here. And then this is my subject will come out as plain text. So that's perfect. Now, I'm going to amp this up a little bit more because I don't want to be reusing things all over the place. Let's say I needed the same, I wanted to have the same exact, I wanted to send an email in multiple different places, right? But I wanted to make sure I sent the right email and got the right body and got the right subject for these. These text merges can be used as as runtime selection. So runtime selection says, I don't know what I need. I don't know what this text merge is going to look like at design time, but I know what but I'm going to figure out what it's going to look like at runtime. And so a good way we can figure out what it's going to look like at runtime is if I use a truth table. So I'm going to create a truth table in here. Pick or create. Text merge TT. Go ahead and create this. And then let's go in here. I'm going to add input data, and this is just going to be called email name. That's perfectly fine. Email name for now. And what I essentially want to do is be able to just give this flow an email name and then the my data that it could potentially use for my text merges. I want to give it that and have it output the body and the subject of my email. So email name equals, let's just keep up with the breakfast theme. I'm going to go French toast. I told Sabrina I would do some kind of superhero, so I'm going to do Superman. I'm going to output data. I'm actually going to change these. So I'm going to do body, text merge ID. I'm going to make this a string. It's going to be perfectly fine. Then I'm going to add another one that is going to be subject. Text merge ID. It's going to be a string as well. So I'm going to come back here, and this body text merge 1 is going to be my French toast. So I'm going to edit get text merge, copy this, go back to my body text merge. This is going to be French toast, perfect. And then subject text merge 1 is going to be my French toast subject as well. Okay, so now I have those two. Let's go ahead and make some other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and make my body text merge 2. I'm going to put something. This is my Superman email body. I'm going to make it have my data as well. Another reason I also used a flow structure is because of this runtime selection. The way runtime selections work is if every single one of the things you're trying to runtime select by using the same step, let's say you're doing it using a flow, or if you're doing it using text merges, or if you're doing it using rules, they need to have the same inputs. And I'll never forget one time I did the same thing right here, but I was using a flows for runtime selection, and a customer, I didn't use a flow structure. I was just putting in every single input and trying to keep them in sync. But then a customer asked, after I already had 25 flows that were runtime select, if I can add a new input. And it about drove me crazy. I had to go to 25 different flows and add an input and make sure they matched exactly the same. But if I use the flow structure, I can just add another thing to the flow structure, and it can be another input to all of my preceding text merges. So that's another good use case for it. So I'll go ahead and create another text merge. This is going to be my Superman text merge, or subject text merge. I'll put Superman subject. Close and save. Let's add my data. Almost forgot. Just talked about it. Folder. Close and save. So that's good. So let's go back here. Let's add my body text merge 2. Get merge ID. Perfect. Go ahead and get my subject text merge 2. Okay, cool. And so now if the email equals French toast, it's going to pop out these two IDs. If the email name equals Superman, it's going to pop out these two IDs. So just go ahead and save this. And so now I'm going to go ahead and make this return only first result because that's all I need. I'm going to make my email name an input. And hope I can spell them right. But okay, so now that I made my selection type runtime selection, you're going to see it's going to have a new input called target ID. I'm going to go ahead and make my data. I feel like I've flip-flopped between my data and my data this whole meeting, so I apologize for the inconsistencies. I'm going to make this take in my data from input, and so this should do the same thing. I'll do select from flow, so they're using the same my data. And then what I'm also going to do is I don't want this to be tied to my body text merge 1. I want it to be something completely different. I don't want it to default to body text merge 1. So what I'm going to do is instead of using my body text merge 1, I'm going to pick my random text merge because it has the same input, which is great. It's kind of like picking a template, and then at design time or at flow time, then it's going to pick the actual one it uses. So it works out really well. And also, if you're ever trying to like make one of these text merges, instead of going and creating one again, I typically copy from my template. So I'll pick a template for my flow at design time, and then I'll go copying that template every single time. So then I know my inputs are exactly the same. And come here for body text merge, and I'll go select from flow for my target ID, and this is going to be my body, right? Yeah, body. So I'll take my body text merge ID, which is the ID of the text merge. Same thing for subject. You'll see the result. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and debug, and I'm going to give this French toast. I really hope I spelled that right. That'd be really embarrassing. Go ahead and go to admin. And then, okay, all right. This is where I need to think of more breakfast foods, and none are coming to mind. So I'm going to do avocado. I think avocado would be considered. What'd you say?
Hash browns.
Hash browns, that's a good one. Cool, and hit OK. And then I'm just going to run capturing all. So you'll see my truth table said, okay, you have French toast, so you're going to use these two IDs. And you'll see in my output, it's going to say, this is my email body, and it's going to say probably eggs, right? I think we put eggs in here. Nope, we put avocado. And then same thing for this one, we're going to see, this is my subject, hash browns. I'm going to run the same session using the same data, but I'm going to switch this to Superman. And now you're going to see on the outcome, you're going to see this is my Superman email body, and this is my Superman subject. And so with this, what I really like to do is I like to build less. What I'd like to encourage you guys to do is be some of the laziest developers you'll have and let the tool do the work for you, right? In this example, I'm using one singular flow, but I have 4 text merges running for me, right? So now if I were to go, enhance it more, if I were to make more truth table results, more emails and bodies, I wouldn't have to create a new flow. I just have to create the text merges, and I would just have to add that row to my truth table, making me a really lazy developer. But what I like to say is if you're doing something twice, you're doing something wrong. I can't steal that. My college professor used to ingrain that into my head when I was coding. So yeah, so when you're building, try to think of ways where you don't have to build that much, and you'll be a more efficient builder using the tool's capabilities. So do I have any questions about this kind of building methods? Of course, you can build off of this. What I used for another customer was they created an entity called email. And in that email entity, all it had was 2 IDs, body ID and subject ID. And they would just put the ID of the entity in the truth table instead of the body and subject. Therefore, and they would just fetch the entity by the name and then pull in body and subject. So, any questions? I probably went over that super fast. If there's anything you want me to deep dive into, gladly do that. One of the cruxes I find to be very evident in these giant processes that we tend to build in decisions is emails. Just, always having to keep in mind how many emails you have in a process. And sometimes it could be upwards of 50 if you're sending a bunch of emails. So a preference of mine is I like to make the email process as efficient as possible. And by doing this sort of method, I can make it as efficient as possible. I can use one singular flow that sources my body and subject for me. I can write the body and subject somewhere else and then just pull it into here. I can use one single flow and just enter in a name, give it my data, of course, which would be our flow structure, and it would output the body and subject directly into my send email step. So just more effective, makes me a faster builder. If I were to go and add a send email step to a process that is 50 email steps long, and I've done this behavior, it'll take me 2 minutes, as opposed to other methods of going into the flow, picking, putting a send email step, doing all the text merges and stuff like that, setting up the to and from. I can put this in there quickly and use that subflow to my advantage. So.
So this was all the benefits of using a text merge instead of just manually mapping things in within the flow, correct? Something along those lines?
That is correct, yeah.
All right.
All to try to limit the amount of work I do in a day. Or actually, if you think about it, more efficient. So I guess maximize the amount of work I'm doing in a day.
More work, less time.
Yeah, more work, less time. So big advocate for subflows. So, you know, the answer is usually a subflow to anything.
Does anybody in the chat have any questions about text merges or would like to discuss any other topics?
Happy to discuss anything else along the lines of best practices in building. If anyone needs anything. Alex, you're raising your hand?
I am. And
hey.
So yeah, I just stepped in, so I'm not sure what's going on, but I noticed something text related going on. And one of the things that I kind of was curious about is I want to basically build out an email response. And I can't, like, so I basically want to cycle through a 1 to n number of users that I had approved something and basically list them one after another, like on top of each other, inside the body of the email. So, I mean, I kind of curious just as to what the mechanism would be to get the line breaks in there.
To get the line breaks in there. It might not be the best method, but what I typically do is I'll do a for each step, and I can put something in here right now. So I'll create kind of what you kind of want to do. So list of people.
Yeah.
I'll make this a list, and I'll just put Josh, Jared, Sabrina. And so this is the kind of thing you want to make a text merge where it links all of them together, right?
Yeah, one on top of each other though, rather than like next to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll do a for each step in here, and what I'll do is for each list of people, and also with my list of create, I'm just gonna initialize a string. So I'm just gonna call it initialize string. And then, okay, so list of people, I have item. Something cool with the for each step I actually have never used before, but there's an add outcome for first item that you can put onto here, which is kind of cool. And so for my first result, I just want to set the value equal to it. So I'm going to put first result. I'm going to take in select from flow, take in my current item, and I'm just going to rename or actually change value on that initialized string that I did. And so my first one's taken care of. That's good. And so for the next couple, I just want to stack it on top of the other ones, right? Or I want to put it beneath the rest of them. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put all other string. It's probably not the best name for it, but I'm going to go to merge plain text. And I'm going to take in my already initialized string, and I'm just going to add item beneath it. That's perfect. So what I'm going to do is close, rename. I'm going to change value, and I'm going to put it back into the initialized string. And that should work really well. And then so now I have this, like, first one's going to be good. It's just going to set the name. I think it's equal to Josh. And then the next couple are just going to stack it on top of the rest. and it'll go forth like that. So I'm going to debug it. I think, did I set this back to? Yep, I did. Oh, don't need that anymore. And so this last execution should be the last one. And so see, I put Josh, Jared, Spring. I think I put an extra space in there in my text merge, but that would be kind of the method, if that helps.
Yep, that's great.
Okay. And if you're doing this pretty often, it might be best, so like I said earlier, just to do a subflow. Takes in a list and initializes your string for you, puts the first one in and outputs the list. It might just be better, more efficient if you're doing this all over the place.
Josh, can you export that to me so I have that?
Can I export this to Jared, you?
Yeah, me. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that after this.
Yeah, I haven't seen this way. The way I would have handled it would be using like the create string builder and then append new lines of text and then loop through it that way.
Yeah, string builders I've actually never worked with. My typical reason for having to do this is HTML. It's very common for us to need to use it in HTML. Like we'll stack a name on top of another, just like an email kind of thing. And another way I've done it is I've used a list mapping step to kind of put them all into a similar format. So let's say, all right, so with this manner, I'm going to output a string and I'm just going to input a string. So I'm going to select from flow, do I just wrote this constant. I'm going to do if you need to do something like this, what I'll do is a list mapping step. I'll do a show mapping editor. And in this, I'll do merge plain text. And it's very typical for me to do P, whatever input's just my string, and then something like that. And then I can do a I think it's called join strings. And it's going to ask for a separator, and the typical separator we need is like that BR, that break. And the source is going to be my outputs. And so this will make it into like an HTML format that we can use. But yeah, and so it'll put P comma P break, P comma P break, you know, and so it'll allow for it to look good in HTML as well. So that's another way to kind of do it, is just to use the list mapping step to wrap it in some sort of HTML that you would like it to look like. If you want it to be bold, that's perfect. If you want it to be, you know, underlined, something like that, maybe a different color, you know, feel free to use this method as well.
So in like, for example, in the body of my email, like I basically have written like a subflow that basically takes a subject, a body, you know, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So and in the in calling the subflow, I basically am doing like a merge HTML.
Yeah.
So this would be a good candidate for what I want to send into the subflow.
This would be a good candidate of what you want to send into a subflow. Yeah, I agree. What I would probably do is, I don't know, maybe make it a converter flow. Just if you want it to look like the same every single time, you can make it a converter flow that just takes in a list of strings and outputs the HTML kind of look of a string, which would be good. So if you're talking about just like putting it into like a body or subject, I'll use replace tokens in text.
Well, you guys ship with like a default email template, right? Which I'm kind of piggybacking off of, and inside that thing, it's got like a bracket, a braced thing, context, and I think
content. Yeah, content.
You guys do a replace when you use that email template, right?
Yeah, that's all we do. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm looking at what to send into that thing to get replaced so that it comes out beautifully formatted.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so you're using the HTML from our email template?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And you're trying to just replace the content with your content, right?
Well, yeah, so you guys seem to do that for me. I don't really have to do anything. I just,
Oh
in
yeah,
my,
you just all you do is
send
select it.
email, I specify
Yeah.
the template, and you guys take whatever the content of the body is and replace it with that token.
That is true. That's what we do. Yeah.
Okay.
What I used to do for changing emails, I'm not sure if it'll work if you wanted to make your own email template. Again, I haven't done this since my days on the POC team. If I can find it, designers, email templates, and here's our default email template. What I would do is just download it. Now, I would usually take the HTML, which I think, if I open it up in a Word document, if I open up in a Word document, what I would do is I'd essentially take the HTML from the downloaded content. So I'm just going to edit this with Notepad++. So here's my email template. This is day one of POC builds of mine. I would copy that whole, and I would do HTML edit for free, and you'd see the whole decisions thing. So this gets sent every time you send an email, and there's things in here that you can change if you wanted to, right? So here's like the footer bottom. Not sure if this is going to change, but yeah, essentially you can alter this to make it look however you want. If you wanted it to look a little different, if you wanted to put your own stuff in here, your own images, you can alter this however you want. So I think I can just put a picture of some pancakes in here just to complete the whole breakfast thing. Open image in new tab. I think here is the image SRC for this white logo. Pancakes. So you can put your own thing in here if you wanted to, and then just turn this into your email template.
No, so that's effectively what I've done. I downloaded your default thing and modified it to my liking, and then I just leave this brace content brace, and then when in the send email, it just puts whatever I put in the body
in the content,
in the content thing. So
that's what it'll do.
I guess the best thing to do is to I just basically pump in HTML into that thing, and it will get replaced, right?
It will, yeah. All you have to do is give it into the body of the send email step. Send email stuff will work exactly like that. It'll just replace the content, the body into that content. So all you got to do is fill in the body of the send email step, and it'll replace it.
Perfect.
For you. So if you need to do some text merge editing and stuff like that, we'll send this meeting out, and you can kind of watch the first half of this meeting. We really talked a lot about bodies and using text merges to do stuff like that. So that could be really helpful for you.
Okay, great. So this is going to go up on the site with all the other guys there?
It should, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Appreciate that.
Cool. So Jimmy, I have a question. In an active form flow, how do you toggle the field requirement? I've tried to create data with a form validation issue. With the output change value, but I get an error. How do you toggle the field requirement? Not sure if you can toggle the field requirement. I'd have to look into that. I'm not really sure about form validation issues written in 7. Does anyone? Oh, okay.
I can share my screen, Josh, if you want me to demonstrate it.
Please. Yeah. Hey, Jimmy. How you doing, man?
I'm great, man. Long time no talk.
Yeah, I know.
Alrighty. So I'll set up this form for form validation. I'm just going to add a button. And then I'm going to add a text box. And I think I'll pick on Josh for this demonstration. All right. So what I'm going to do, this is going to be my box. So test box. All right. So I'm going to create an active form flow. This is going to be throw throw error if value equals Josh. All right, so now I'm going to edit this form flow. And what we do here is I'm going to first evaluate the data out of that text box. So that's going to be the easy part. So string equals, let's see, let's just do. So then I'm going to do select from flow. You can get access to the form data. This shows all the controls that are on your form, and it determines that by the control's name. So notice I didn't change the text box name, so it's just labeled as text box. If I renamed it, then it would be a different name. I'm going to click on that text box. Now I have access to the enabled, initial value, validation issues, value, and visibility. So the thing that we're going to want to do here is I just want the value. And then I'm going to see if it equals, and we're just going to say Josh. All right, so if he equals Josh, then what I want to do is there's a whole category in the active form flow called form rules. I'm going to go to form rules, and what I can do is I can say, hey, I can add a validation. So I'm going to say set validation if it's true, and then if it's false, I want to clear all validations. This is going to be like the basic paradigm of my setup. And then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to connect this to the end step. And then this doesn't need any configuring, but I'm going to my set validations. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the form control. And in this case, I'm going to go to form data. And then I'm going to select this entire control because that's the form element I want this validation applied to. And then I'm going to then build an array of the issue. So in this case, I only need one. So after I build the array, then I'm going to set this to a constant. And then I have this pencil here. I can click this pencil, and this is the part where I determine what I want the break level to be. So I'm going to set this to fatal, and I'm going to say Josh is not allowed. Sorry. Sad face. And I'm going to click OK. So now I believe here, once we have that validation set, it is tied to that control. So I'm going to hit save. And there we go. And then I'm going to click on the text box, and I want this to run whenever there's a value change. Okay. And then now the next step is let's place this on a flow to make sure that it works. So I'm going to create a flow. I'm going to say this is test fat fingering today, test my validation form. And I'm just say test my validation. I'm going to drag my show form step, pick my form, add this to the process, and then let's run it and let's see what happens. So I'm going to put Josh, and let's see, and there we go. Josh is not allowed, sorry. Nice. Now I can switch it to Jared, and then now there's no validation and I can continue on.
Cool, yeah, I was using a create data step and trying to change the output with the change value and wasn't getting anything, so.
Sorry, Jimmy, that was probably a product of our process coaching. I have a lot to learn about these new form rules.
Yeah. So. Jimmy, I actually initially did that as well, and that just made it a lot more complicated because then I had to add an add to items to list step at the output of the active form flow, and I just added just an excess number of steps just to clear the validations. There's a document that I sent that actually goes over those specific steps in the active form flows, and that's what actually helped me learn, oh, there's an easier way to do this than trying to create data, create the type, and then get the value you want.
Yeah, and the create data, I hate it because if you change that editor on the created data, it clears all your outputs that you've done.
Mm-hmm.
It's annoying. You have to remap everything on there.
Absolutely, yeah. It's just that form rules category that's really cool. So just be found in form rules would be the one where you can go. And this also makes it easier too. So typically I used a lot of the several create data steps for even visibility as well, just to say, hey, create a Boolean flag that's false or whatever. You can utilize these to enable, disable, and they automatically do that for you. And all you have to do is just pick the control.
That sounds a lot more simple than create data. Thanks.
Yep, my pleasure.
Just suffering here in version 6.17. When does this? What point does this form stuff become available? Is that like specifically a 7.0 feature?
Yes, the
Yes,
active form
yeah.
flows is a 7.0 feature. It is meant to replace the legacy data flows, validation
Right.
rules, and visibility rules.
Okay.
But yeah, if you upgrade to 7.0 and any 7 version, you'll have active form flows as a capability.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Bit of a learning curve on them, but they are very useful.
No, they look like way more fun than, as you say, like building out these types and adding errors to lists and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, correct. I don't know if anyone's ever made a validation flow before using this new kind, but it was a little tough. So
Yeah, that's me.
yeah.
Looking forward to it. Okay, great. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. If there's no other questions, I'll probably end a little early. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Thanks for coming to Decisions Lunch and Learn. Thank you.